On the morning of the town's annual autumn fair, Maplebrook looked as if it had been brushed with gold. Every leaf, every shop sign, and every rooftop carried the warmth of the season. Children dragged their parents toward stalls filled with candied apples, elders settled on benches to talk about the good old days. But beneath the cheerful buzz, life moved at its own pace. Some hearts hurried, some slowed, and some quietly broke while no one noticed. Among the crowd walked Lena Whitmore, a 32-year-old woman with soft brown hair tied in a loose braid. She carried herself with practiced calm, though her eyes carried tiny storms. Lena was a teacher, kind, observant, and patient, but lately, her own life had tested these qualities. Her mother's illness, her growing responsibilities, and her silent fears crowded her days. But she still came to the fair early, determined to volunteer at the community booth. Helping others always steadied her. At the same time, Thomas Hale, a man in his early 40s with dark hair and a quiet, thoughtful expression, wandered the fair alone. He was a carpenter, practical hands, gentle soul, but today his shoulders sagged. He had recently lost his workshop to a fire, and though the community had offered their sympathy, Thomas felt hollow, uncertain of how to rebuild his life from ashes. Both walked in silence, unaware that the day would stitch their stories together. As the sun climbed, the fairgrounds filled rapidly. At the center of the park, a large wooden board titled "Wall of Wishes" invited people to pin small handwritten notes, hopes, dreams, words for loved ones, fears they wished to release. It was an idea introduced by the town committee to spread emotional warmth, and surprisingly, it worked. People approached the board shyly at first, then openly, writing things from simple wishes, "I hope my cat gets better," to deeply personal confessions, "I miss you, Dad." Lena was assigned to help maintain the wall, refill notes, keep the pins organized, and offer a smile to those who looked hesitant. She loved it. The wall felt like a living testament to human softness, to the courage of quiet hearts. Around noon, Thomas drifted toward the Wall of Wishes. He paused, hands in his pockets, staring at the overflowing notes. One message caught his eye: "May tomorrow be kinder than today." He smiled faintly. That was exactly what he had hoped for. Lena noticed him. He looked like someone carrying a weight heavy enough to bend his voice if he spoke. She approached gently. "Would you like to write something?" she asked. Thomas hesitated. "I'm not sure words can help." "Sometimes," Lena said softly, "they help more than we expect." Her voice carried warmth, not forced, not distant, just honest. Thomas gave a small nod and reached for a paper slip. For a long time, his pen hovered above the surface. Then he wrote, "I hope I find the strength to start again." He pinned it quietly. Lena, reading it from a respectful distance, felt something tug in her chest. She didn't know his story, but she recognized the tone of someone standing at the edge of uncertainty. People came and went, leaving messages of love, grief, humor, and hope. A group of children wrote, "We want more holidays." An elderly woman wrote, "I forgive you." A teenage boy scribbled, "I'll learn to believe in myself someday." The wall breathed with their honesty. Hours later, just as the fair reached its peak, storm clouds unexpectedly gathered over Maplebrook. The weather forecast had promised sunshine, yet the sky shifted with dramatic impatience. Gusts of wind swept through the stalls. Vendors scrambled to secure tents. Children squealed in surprise as cotton candy lifted like pink clouds. Then it began, a sudden, forceful rain. People rushed toward shelter. The fair lost its cheerful rhythm in seconds. The Wall of Wishes shuddered as raindrops struck like tiny hammers. Lena gasped. The notes. They would dissolve in minutes. Just as she reached to protect them, the wind tore at the board with fierce determination. Notes scattered like panicked birds. Without hesitation, Thomas sprinted forward. "I've got it." Together, without planning, without speaking, they pressed their bodies against the board, shielding the fluttering papers from the storm. Rain soaked Thomas's jacket and darkened Lena's braid, but neither moved. They braced the board with their shoulders, their hands clutching the wooden frame. The storm raged, but they didn't retreat. People sheltering nearby stared. Someone called, "Leave it. You'll get drenched." But Lena shook her head. "These notes mean something to people, they trusted us with them." She shouted over the rain, but her conviction held steady. Thomas glanced at her, this stranger who cared enough to protect other people's feelings with such urgency. Her determination gave him strength. After several long minutes, the rain eased. The dark clouds drifted, almost embarrassed by their interruption, and the sun peeked shyly through again. Slowly, Lena and Thomas stepped back. The wall of wishes still stood, wet, battered, but intact. Lena let out a breath, half laugh, half sigh. That was close. Thomas wiped rain from his face. Looks like today had other plans. Their eyes met, sharing a moment of unexpected connection, two people who instinctively understood each other's unspoken struggles. Volunteers and visitors hurried over to help dry the notes. A couple brought towels. Someone fetched a portable heater. The community that had scattered during the storm now gathered again, united not by celebration but by shared purpose. A little girl approached Lena timidly. "My note didn't fly away, right?" Lena knelt to meet her eyes. "No. Not a single one. We protected them." The girl hugged her tightly. Lena smiled, her heart warming in a way it hadn't in weeks. Thomas watched the scene, feeling something tender unfold inside him. The storm had shaken more than the fair, it had shaken loose something within himself. Later, as the fair resumed, Thomas stayed near the wall of wishes, helping tape the edges of the notes so they wouldn't curl. Lena worked beside him. They talked softly between tasks. She learned about his workshop, the fire, his worry about starting from scratch. He learned about her mother's illness and how Lena feared losing the person who had always been her anchor. They didn't offer dramatic solutions. They simply listened, and in that listening, a quiet understanding formed. When the sun began its golden descent, casting long shadows across the park, the mayor approached them. "You too," she said, smiling warmly, "saved the spirit of this fair today. We all saw it. Thank you." Lena shook her head. "It wasn't just us. It started with you," the mayor said. "Sometimes all a community needs is one act of kindness to remind everyone who we are." As the mayor left, Thomas turned to Lena. "You know, today, hearts really did speak louder." She smiled at the phrase. "Maybe they always do. We just forget to listen." They continued working until the fair wound down. Families left with tired smiles. Lanterns flickered along the park paths. The board, now dry, stood proudly, its hundreds of messages shining under the evening lights. Finally, Lena and Thomas walked toward the exit together. "Thank you," Thomas said. For everything today. For reminding me people still care." Lena looked at him gently. "Thank you too. You didn't even hesitate during the storm." He chuckled softly. "It felt like the right thing to do." "It was," she said. "Kindness usually is." They walked in comfortable silence until they reached the road where their paths diverged. "Well," Thomas said awkwardly, "I guess I'll see you around." Lena hesitated, only for a breath, and then she surprised herself. "Thomas, if you ever need help rebuilding your workshop. I'm not very strong, but I'm good at organizing, sanding, handing tools, that sort of thing." His eyes widened slightly. "You'd really help?" "I would," she said. "Sometimes it's easier to rebuild when someone stands beside you." He nodded slowly, moved. "Then, yes. I'd like that." Before they parted, Lena reached into her bag and handed him a small slip of paper, the same size as the Wall of Wishes notes. "What's this?" he asked. "A reminder," she said. He unfolded it. "Even broken things can be rebuilt stronger." Thomas felt his throat tighten. It was simple, but it was exactly what he needed. He tucked the note carefully into his pocket. "Thank you, Lena." They walked away in opposite directions, but for both, the world felt slightly lighter, slightly warmer. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. The story of how they protected the Wall of Wishes spread throughout Maplebrook. People who hadn't spoken in years exchanged friendly greetings. Neighbors baked for each other. Teenagers helped elders carry groceries. An air of gentleness settled over the town. Sometimes big change didn't come from grand speeches, it came from the way two strangers stood in the rain to protect the fragile hopes of others. A week later, Lena visited Thomas's property, ready to help him rebuild. She arrived with a toolbox she had borrowed from her neighbor and a smile that reflected new strength. Thomas welcomed her with grateful warmth. As they worked side by side, measuring wood, clearing debris, sketching plans, they talked about fears, about hope, about how kindness didn't fix everything, but it made the hard parts easier to bear. And slowly, steadily, the workshop began to take shape. Their bond grew, not rushed, not dramatic, but real. Built on shared gratitude. On quiet moments. On the simple truth that hearts speak loudest when they speak through action. Months later, when the workshop finally reopened, Thomas placed something special on the front wall, a framed note. "I hope I find the strength to start again." Beside it, he added Lena's note. "Even broken things can be rebuilt stronger." People who visited often paused to read them, feeling encouragement settle into their own hearts. Because sometimes, all it took was a small spark of kindness to light a path for others. And that was the day Maplebrook learned a lesson it would never forget. When hearts speak louder, louder than fear, louder than doubt, miracles don't look like flashes of light. They look like people showing up. They look like two strangers standing in the rain. They look like kindness.